call a little bit earlier. We've been chatting up. I'm actually on the road heading from St. Louis to Kansas City. So I was actually going to turn over the presentation and the introduction to our Vice President of Distribution, Vicki Schell. And she's going to take over the helm for me. So I just want to say thanks, everybody, for joining us for our second one, and I hope you enjoy it. And Vicki, I'm going to go ahead and give it to you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rita. Appreciate it, and welcome. And good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate you taking the time to attend our second edition of Think Tank Thursday, How to Manage Rate Parity to Your Advantage. As Rita just mentioned, it is a very timely and hot topic, so we're excited to offer this up. First, before we kind of dive in and I introduce our guest speaker, I wanted to just go over a few kind of housekeeping items. Obviously, this is a very open forum, and questions are welcome. But we, have a couple of post your questions either in the webcast control area. You can click raise your hand icon, and then after the session is over, we will have a Q&A session to follow the presentation, so that any questions that you have, you'll have opportunity to ask, and we can answer those for you. And as a courtesy to all of the participants, we ask that you place your phones on mute. And the webinar is being recorded, and it will be made available for future playback so that you can listen to it again if there's anything you want to key in on, or also share with any of your other staff members or colleagues. All right, so it's my esteemed pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for our Think Tank Thursday today. Her name is Evelyne Oreskovich. Evelyne is the President and CEO of Hospitality Evolution Resources. As a consultant for the hospitality and travel industry, Evelyne provides clients with expertise gained over 30 years in key roles at a wide range of entities offering reservations, distribution, marketing support, and management in the global hospitality marketplace. Having performed various strategy development and implementation roles at both corporate and property levels, Evelyne bridges the gap between management, operations, technology, and marketing to motivate teams and improve performances as they navigate the ever-evolving distribution landscape. Evelyne brings valuable and solid hands-on experience leading teams and consulting for companies such as Nico International, the leading hotels of the world, and outdoor travel destinations. She is a founder and past board member of HEDNA, the Hospitality Electronic Distribution Network Association, and has been integral in curriculum development for their HEDNA University training series. So as you can see, Evelyne brings a wealth of industry knowledge to this timely subject of rate parity and its impact on the industry. So without any further ado, let's dive into the meat, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Evelyne Oreskovich.
Thank you very much, Vicki. Can everyone see my screen?
I don't see it yet, Evelyne.
Okay. Yeah, let me know when you've seen it. I guess you got to hand over controls over to me. So
yeah.
Let's see. Show my screen. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah. All right. Great. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad to have been invited. The topic today, of course, of today's think tank is parity, and it is a really hot topic in our industry, and it's getting an awful lot of attention from many parts of the industry. In Europe, it's been very much in the news lately as well. And a brand like Vantage has a lot at stake, both for the brand reputation and relationships as well as for properties and the bottom line. So we're going to go through a number of areas today during the session, and I look forward to hearing your questions at the end. So thank you again for inviting me. That's me. So the agenda today, we're going to be reviewing a number of things. So we'll start with defining what parity is. Then we'll look at who would typically ask for parity in their relationships and why. Some statistical information will put their reliance on parity in perspective. And there are a number of methods that they use to enforce parity clauses, and we'll look at what they're looking at in their parity shopping reports and cover a few areas that you might be hurting your property's performance with some of these partners by not managing your property, your parity properly. And finally, we'll touch on a few best practices and then open it up for questions. So what is parity? It's more than you think. When we're talking about parity, we're generally thinking about rates as the only element. But in fact, there are 3 types of parity that the distribution partners are considering when measuring your compliance to their agreement clauses. A, R, and I. Availability parity, rate parity, and inventory parity. So let's review each one to see what they mean. The concept behind availability parity is that everybody has the same shot at making a booking if you have a room available. So for the same room, the same availability. In an availability parity, you wouldn't close out orbits if you keep Expedia open. The next is rate parity. This is the one that most of us are primarily concerned with. So rate parity is making sure that you offer the same price for the same room across all your distribution channels. This means that even if the commission might be, lower or more for one OTA, you can't make up for it by giving another OTA a lower price for the same room. So it means the same rates across channels. Finally, the I in the ARI parity definition is inventory. So inventory parity is making sure that you offer everybody the same room types. So if you give Travelocity a twin standard room, you have to give Booking.com the twin standard room at the same price with the same availability. Now, parity, in order for it to be compliant, is subject to certain conditions. So not every rate is included when you're looking at parity compliance. So first of all, the rates must be for the same hotel, the same room, the same travel dates, the same policy terms. And by policy terms, we're talking about cancellation policy, prepayment policy, length of stay requirements, and those kinds of things. So that's the first thing, that it really has to be same for same. The second thing is that the rate has to be available to the general public online. So anybody can go online and book the rate without any qualifications. If qualification applies, there's a good chance that that rate won't be considered when establishing parity. So in that case, you're excluding rates that have requirements such as a membership that you have to show an ID on check-in, like an AARP, military, travel agent discount, things like that. Or if you need a password or some kind of membership number to access offers and discounts, like for a loyalty program, or if the rate requires a special rate code or a promotional code, like for a contest or a package. All of those scenarios, all of those rate categories are not included when you're comparing your parity. So it's possible that some of these rate categories will actually be lower than what you're offering the OTAs. And the OTAs can't call you on it because they are within a policy description that has restrictions to it. So again, when you're considering how to manage your parity, you have to remember ARI. A, availability. Each channel has the ability to make a reservation at the same available rooms. R is obviously the identical price. The rate has to be identical across channels. And the inventory is you're offering everybody the same room types. So who typically requires parity? And there's basically 2 groups that will generally fall under this area. The first is the online travel agency. This is a prime example of who requires parity. And all of the sites that you see on your screen now have a relationship with Vantage Hospitality. And if you participate in their programs, you need to support the parity agreements under the ARI idea. And for the purposes of most of what we're going to be talking about, I'm going to use the OTAs as examples, just because they're sort of top of mind, and that's what we will generally relate to when we're talking about parity. But they're not the only ones. Travel management companies and consortia, they also require parity because they compete with each other for corporate business, and they have to remain competitive. So again, all of these travel management companies, such as BCD and Amex, as well as some consortia, the CCRAs and ABCs of the world, all of these guys are looking for parity in the corporate area. Now, I know some of you are doing competitive rate shopping to keep tabs on your comp set, so it shouldn't surprise you to know that some of your competitive brands are also watching what you're doing. This is done both at the property and the brand levels. So they're using the information they gather to influence their own pricing strategies. So these obviously don't require you to show parity, but they're monitoring what you're doing in the parity area, because while they're negotiating their position with the distribution partners, be it a TMC, consortia, or an OTA, if you're not in parity and they know it, they're going to use that information to their advantage by negotiating better terms and better positioning with those partners. So, why do these companies require parity? The first obvious answer to that question is price as a differentiator and competitiveness. So all the partners want to be competitive in the marketplace. That's the single most important driver. Just like you compare your performance to your comp set in the marketplace, so do they. So if they can get you to give them a better rate than you give their competition, they're thrilled, all the better. It gives them a price advantage against their comp set. But they know that you're also going to have to work with their competition. So at the very least, they want to be on a level playing field. And that's where parity comes into play. Best price guarantees are rampant out there. So not only do distribution partners like OTAs offer them, a lot of chains do as well. The goal is to encourage the travelers to book with them with the confidence of knowing that they won't find a better deal anywhere else. These guarantees sometimes come with monetary commitments that are made to the traveler if they find a cheaper rate within the guidelines that we discussed before. So again, excluding all those other rates that don't fall into the parity guidelines. So here's Expedia's guarantee. You can see that they offer a difference in price plus a $50 voucher. Sometimes they require the property or the chains to actually repay those penalties as a penalty for your violation. So for the Vantage brand agreements, that isn't the case. But if you've got some individual agreements out there, you need to be aware of this, because in your agreement, there may be a clause in there that requires you to pay the OTA back if they have to refund a guest or give them any kind of a travel coupon. So you'll often see some chains that have a guarantee like this. Vantage does not. But it's a way for these chains to ensure that their OTA partners aren't undercutting them, and also to keep their member hotels in parity. So in those cases, sometimes the brand will charge the hotel to repay any of these penalties that they have to give out to the guest based on their guarantee. So that's what some of these guys are doing out there. So we all understand why we have to remain competitive, but in order to understand why the sites are so paranoid about being in parity, we have to take a look at how travelers shop online. Expedia commissioned a study from Millward Brown Digital about how people shop for travel, and this report has been widely quoted in the industry and is one of the most comprehensive studies that have been done in the last few years. It covers the period from October 2012 to March of 2013, and it tracks how long it takes from the time people start looking at travel until they booked. So the results show that people start taking travel planning seriously about 5 weeks out from the time that they finally book. The number of sites visited increases every week until the week of booking, where in that week alone they check more than 15 sites excuse me, before deciding where and how to book. In the 5-week period before booking, travelers look on average at 38 sites. That's not the number of times they look online, it's the number of sites they look at. So each of those 38 sites may have been visited more than once. So where are all these people looking? Well, they're looking at destination management organizations, that's 6.4% of the time. Hotel sites account for 4.1%. And meta sites, where people go to compare prices, account for 4.7%. 6.8% are going to planning and review sites. So we're not here to talk about review sites, but that's a real hot topic in the industry these days, so it's something worth noting. But the big slice of the pie was 47% of all visits to travel sites are going to the OTAs. Expedia, Orbitz, Travelocity, Hotels.com, Booking.com, all the usual suspects. So with almost half of all visits going to OTAs, they're in a heated competition to get the traveler to see and appreciate the value they offer and to convince these guys to come back over the course of these 5 weeks and make the booking with them. Of the visits to the OTAs, 31% of those visits are occurring on the day of booking. So the average shopper visited the OTAs 8 times in the week leading up to the booking, and 1/3 of the visits were on the same day. So right up until they click the book button, they're still shopping around to the competition. So a small differential in price can make or break the decision to book with one site or OTA and another. People are really doing their research and absorbing all the information they can. They view content, which includes descriptions, maps, and images. So in this area also, the OTAs they have a disproportionate share of this viewing throughout the time period. So they're looking at how much information are you actually providing to the OTAs so that the OTAs can market you. But in that final week, it's especially significant. And in light of that intense competition, the OTAs have to demand rate parity from their suppliers, or they risk losing the client. So we know what parity is and why our partners work so hard to make sure that you offer it. But how do they know when you're not in parity? It certainly isn't left to chance. The principle of compari shopping is comparing availability, rates, and inventory. You'll recall those are the 3 types of parity. The compari shopping process is accomplished in a number of ways, and there are several companies out there that offer services for not only OTAs and TMCs, but also to hotels who want to keep tabs on their competition's rates. So I'm going to show you a few examples so you can see what they look for when conducting these shopping exercises. And some of the screenshots aren't as crisp as I'd like, but I think you'll get the general idea. This first screen shows you a sample of one of the technology solutions used. You'll see at the top of the screen, there's a list that shows by state and by brand, and then by specific properties within that brand. In this particular example, the OTA is comparing themselves to Expedia and to the property's corporate website. In the bottom of the screen shows for one specific property. is showing by date, the date that was shopped, what the lowest rates are for their own OTA website, the one who's doing the shopping, what the rate is on Expedia, what the difference is between their site and Expedia's, then the property's site, and the difference between their site and the property's site. They take it to a first view, and they take a look at the detail. And again, there's a couple of different views on this screen. So you'll see date by date. And if we take a close look, you can see that they're shopping the number of arrival dates and how many and how long the stays are in the variety of weeks. And they're looking at the ARI and to what extent the parity is observed. So you'll see that they're measuring that parity of ARI based on a percentage. And they're showing here ranges 100%, 75%, 50, 25%. And what they do is, when they buy this solution, they program in right from the beginning the weight that they want each of those components, ARI, to hold with respect to their parity so that they could measure it in some way, a numeric value. So this is a little bit more difficult to read because there's a lot that I'm going to try to condense here. But in this case, they're looking at level of parity being observed across a brand. So in this case, they're showing Courtyard by Marriott with an overall score of 96.8%. So they're looking at the markets, they're looking at the individual properties, but they're also looking at the brand parity compliance. So this example is a little bit easier to see. This is a different solution that one of my clients uses. And again, you'll see that they're comparing the OTAs with the property website. And this particular chart happens to be color-coded, so they can easily hone in on not only where the violations are, but how bad the violation is. So if the rate is $1 difference versus $10 difference, it's going to generate maybe a different color coding. A lot of these tools also have a dashboard that shows trends. So they're showing dashboards that tell you not only how well you're doing property by property, but chain against chain, and then also over time. So they can see if you're improving your compliance or if your compliance is getting worse. Again, by property, by market, by brand. So in a particular market, they may look at all of the hotels in one market and see who are the best players, and they'll want to play better with them. So as far as frequency is concerned, the level of frequency depends on a number of factors. The first factor is markets. So for major markets, those are the most highly booked destinations. So for the U.S. and Canada, we're talking about New York, Orlando, Vegas, Toronto, Montreal, etc. And those markets are generally shopped daily to check on the compliance. Secondary markets include popular destinations, but maybe not the primary ones. So for example, San Antonio, Albuquerque, Baltimore, West Palm Beach, and they'll usually shop those markets 2 or 3 times a week. And then the tertiary markets will be those that aren't on the main list of destinations, so places like Rome, Georgia, or St. Anne, Quebec. Those markets will be shopped weekly, maybe every other week. Sometimes they don't shop them at all. It kind of depends on the priority of that OTA. And then there are markets that shift categories, so depending on the season or the activity. So while Orlando might be a hot spot all year round, New Orleans might only be considered a major market during Mardi Gras or for the Super Bowl. Generally, shops are conducted for 1-night stays, 2-night stays, and 3-night stays. And they look at all 3 to see sort of what the best value is going to be. And depending on the market or season, they may shop for longer lengths of stay if warranted. So people may average a longer stay in the Florida Keys in the wintertime, so they'll shop 7-night stays between January and March, and then the rest of the year they'll shop 1, 2, and 3-night stays. And finally, room types. They're generally shopping all room types, whether you give them a rate for that room type or not. And they don't want to see run of the house. They want to see specific rooms so that their clients know what they're getting. The I in the inventory parity category means that if you're offering a junior suite to one partner, the others will expect that it's also going to be available to them. So if you aren't compliant, how does it affect you? And there are a number of ways that it does. The first is competition. Given the number of sites that people are looking at before they book, your rate has to be shown as consistent. Travelers are looking at your site, Vantage's site, and a number of OTAs to determine which is the best for them to finally make that booking. Wild differences in pricing and availability will reflect badly on the relationship between the property, the brand, and the OTA. So not only you, but the OTA potentially loses if the competitors have a lower price or more consistency. Securing a homepage advantage takes more than offering special rates and promotions to your OTA partners. It takes consistency and commitment to your partnership. Even if you offer a lower rate, a particularly low rate or promotion, if your property or brand has a historical pattern of not complying to parity clauses, they won't even give you any advantage in terms of placement or promotion on their homepage, even if you give them a really cheap rate. They're going to look at how do you play with me all year round, not what is the rate that you're giving me today. Positioning is very important. OTAs are going to penalize partners that don't honor the parity clauses in their contracts. We all know that on search engines like Google, people rarely look past the second page of results, and it's the same on the OTA sites. So if you don't maintain parity, your partners can push you down on the results screens, or you might not even appear at all. So you'll be sacrificing your position. You want to protect your market share. If you're being penalized in the display because of not maintaining parity, your competition is going to get the business that could otherwise have been yours. So why hand business to your competition unnecessarily? Price integrity is something that you need to protect. So this comes into play when you're offering a lower price to one OTA and not another, or even if the OTA has a lower price than on your own site. I did some impromptu checking, and I found some cases where I actually found a lower price on an OTA's website than I did on your own. So why would you charge $75 for your room if you can get $85? If travelers are willing to pay $85 on your own site or another OTA's, then they'll likely pay it on the others. So that $10 difference not only leaves money on the table, it affects your bottom line. And not only because people are paying less, but because your competitiveness and market share on the other OTAs is jeopardized. So it's a double whammy. You're getting less for the room when people are booking it, and you're losing your shot at getting the booking elsewhere because you're not in parity. So the price integrity is a really big one that you need to really pay attention to. Brand integrity. So in all cases, the partners report violations to the head office by either emails or telephone calls. And for the corporate level agreements, it is Vantage's responsibility to encourage you to participate in these programs in good faith, meaning maintaining parity with all the partners. Brand integrity is potentially jeopardized if you don't play fairly. And while you may be primarily worried about your own property, if the head office consistently can't get you to honor the parity agreements, it can have the same negative effect on all the properties in the brand. So your partner hotels, your sister hotels within the Vantage family will suffer positioning issues and potential market share because of you. And ultimately, your distribution partners might just get tired of trying to keep you in parity and blacklist either your property or the brand from their sites. And in this case, not only would you not appear on any results list, or you'll be buried so far down the list that you will really never be found unless there's nothing else. It reflects poorly on your property and on the brand. So it's a domino effect. Each infraction begins to affect all of the aspects of not only your own property, but your colleagues' properties and the brand. So you have to be a family member, and you have to realize that your actions affect not only you, but the other members of the family. So there are basically two ways to manage your ARI offerings to the partners. The first is by using the partner's proprietary extranets, and the other is to use the Vantage CRS, the Central Reservation System. And both have pros and cons. So firstly, what exactly is an extranet? An extranet is a closed system between two companies. So typically, it's an online travel agency and, in our case, a hotel, where the hotel uses that system to maintain rates and availability and sometimes inventory if it's an allocation-based, to receive, and also to receive the reservation. So you're using sort of a separate system to maintain rates and availability and to receive reservations between you and your partner. So let's look at pros and cons. In the pro column, your updates are instantaneous to the partner. So that as soon as you update it, they have it and they upload it. And the systems are generally really easy to use because they want people to not have any questions and not have to call a support desk. On the con side, you're already managing your rates, availability, and inventory on other systems like your CRS and your PMS. So this is an additional system that you have to manage, and it's a lot easier to get out of parity without you even realizing it. The more systems that you're managing for ARI, the easier it is for your inventory to be spread too wide. This is especially true for hotels with smaller numbers of rooms. And most overbooking problems are caused because of folks trying to manage multiple systems. A lot of hotels also maintain allocations when using extranets, and this can cause you to run out of inventory for the partner while you still have rooms available elsewhere. So remember, the parity is ARI, and it's not just rate parity that they're looking for. So when your inventory is out of parity, you've got issues with the allocation. So overall, it's a lot easier to get out of parity when you're using an extranet. Next is the CRS, the Central Reservation System, which of course Vantage Hospitality offers to all of its members. And this is a place for you to manage all of your rooms, rates, your rules, your descriptions, your images, inventory, your channels. Everything is managed out of the one system. In some cases, your CRS might also be interconnected with your property management system to facilitate the delivery of reservations and to keep your inventory synchronized. So that's the best case scenario. So let's look at the pros and cons of using the CRS for managing partner parity. On the pro side, you can manage all your partners in one place. So it's easy to see what you're doing with each, and you don't have to remember to update multiple systems. And this applies not only for ARI, but also for your descriptions, your rules, your images, etc. You have one bucket of inventory, and everybody pulls out of the same bucket. So it ensures availability parity across all the channels and minimizes your risk of overbooking. By tying the rates to bar or another rate category, You can much more easily apply the necessary reductions and increases without much of an effort. As you adjust the primary rate, the partner rates are automatically adjusted and you don't have to do anything more. The ease of maintaining your rates across all the channels and for all your programs is a time saver. It also is a money saver in terms of the effort and manpower that are required to maintain your multiple systems and keep track of what rates, promotions, and rules that you've put everywhere. On the con side, there is a fee associated with bookings that come from the CRS, and we can't deny that that is a consideration for many of us. But at the end of the day, this is really the only downside to using the CRS. So a lot of these channels have been around for 20 years or more, and the practices have been analyzed within the hospitality community to determine what works best. The first thing is the central res system is the best way to manage the offerings. And this has proven best because there's less room for error. With everybody pulling out of the same bucket of inventory, you'll always remain in compliance. And setting the rates to an existing rate level, like bar, best available room, best available rate, it not only maintains the reductions at the contracted amount, but it also makes it easy to manage. Because once you set up the relationship between the rates, all you have to do is manage that primary rate, and that drives everything else. So it's good practice not only to manage your OTA rates, but also for your contracted rates, your membership offerings, your TMC and corporate rates. And the practice allows you to ensure that your OTA rates don't undercut the lowest rate that you're offering on your own property or brand Vantage website. So it eliminates the possibility of you giving a lower rate to Expedia than somebody could get by going on your own website, where you might leave some money on the table. And finally, you need to review your performance. OTAs and travel management companies perform differently in different markets. And when brands, including Vantage, negotiate agreements with partners, they're already taking into consideration the ones that have the best synergy with their property members. But there may be some local channels or sites that specialize in your market. And if you're thinking about contracting individually with those and possibly using an extranet, there are a number of questions that you should ask to ensure that you're participating in the right programs. So what other properties in your market are being sold on that channel, and are they in your comp set? Because obviously, if you're talking to a channel that specializes in five-star properties, the Vantage brands may not be the right comp set, and it might not be the right channel. And then you want to look at how much business that they typically send to your market and to your comp set. So you want to make sure that you're going to be getting your fair market share of the business that they send to the market and to the comp set. A lot of these partners will give you the analytical information. They're not going to give you specific booking numbers or what price that your comp set is offering, but they will give you the market share statistics. And you should be looking at these numbers and comparing them to how they perform for you quarterly if you're in a busy market, but at least twice a year. And finally, if you're contracting separately from a member, from a brand contract, before signing anything, check with your account manager at Vantage. I think Vantage calls them member care managers. And check with them first, because they can confirm if there's an existing relationship with the channel. But even if there isn't a corporate agreement, there might still be a connection between that channel system and the central res system that'll facilitate your management of the relationship. So you might not need to use an extranet to manage the relationship that you develop for a market-specific channel. So basically, I encourage all of you to make the most of the relationship and the tools that you have. Your brand relationship provides advantages and services that you might not be able to do very well on an independent basis. That's why you're a member of Vantage. The CRS has tools in place that make it very easy to manage your rates and your parity based on your specific needs and performance. So use those advantages, use the services, use the tools that they offer to make your property work smarter and perform better. Thanks very much for your attention. I suspect that there are a number of questions out there, so I'd like to go ahead and turn it back over to Vicki to let us know what kind of questions we might have out there.
Okay, this is John, actually, but Vicki's right next to me. No problem. Evelyne, that was great. I think I think everyone had to have learned something in there. I know I did. If you have a question, there are two options for you. One, you can enter it in the area marked questions in the website controls. That should be on the right hand of your screen, or you can click on the raise your hand icon, and we'll keep an eye on that and call out to you and unmute your phone when we do that, so you can ask your question directly. We do have a question from Gary Gomez out in Tucson, Arizona. And his question is, we get offers from the OTAs all the time for special offers. Is it a good idea to turn them down just to keep parity? Vicki?
No, sorry. Well, there's two ways to look at it. I mean, you need to stay in parity, so you have the choice of offering that price point across all brands. I mean, across all OTAs. If that promotion makes sense and it drives, your competitors are doing it, and it puts you in a competitive placement within the market without giving away or leaving money on the table. So if you're going to do it, you need to do it across all channels. But if you cannot do it, and you should not do it specific to that OTA, because as much as they require us to be in parity, there's nothing. They're going to all day try to get you to be out of parity with their other sites as long as it's favorable to them. So a market manager is going to, especially with one particular OTA, the ones that we have brand agreements with, they will not do this, and it has no bearing on your placement, any of those algorithms that decide where you're placed on the site. But one OTA in particular can dangle that carrot, give me a better price, I'll move you up. But what that's going to do is, if you don't offer it across all channels, you're going to then be out of parity with everyone else. You're going to hurt your placement with other partners that drive as much business, or not more, and then you're going to be putting all your eggs into one basket and have given it away at a discounted price that you didn't have to, because the market was shown on those other sites that they were willing to pay that price.
Anything you want to add to that, Evelyne?
Yeah, I would just say that, yeah, they're always going to have those special offers, and you get the emails all the time, special Orlando, promotion at Travelocity or whatever. And you want to be there. If that's the market that you're sitting in, you want to make sure that you're promoted. But take that as an opportunity to spread the wealth. Make sure that when you do participate in one, that you go ahead and offer it to the others, even if the others haven't asked, just to cover your base and to make sure that you aren't going to jeopardize your positioning somewhere else. Because that's the last thing. Why lose a handful of bookings somewhere else when you're going to get one from being a lower rate? So it isn't always an apples-to-apples comparison, but I would say don't turn down the opportunity to participate in something like that. Just spread the wealth when you do.
Okay. We've got a few hands raised and a couple more questions, so I am going to take first hand Dilip Amin. I'm going to unmute you, Dilip, and you can ask your question. Dilip? All right. Let's move on. The next person with a raised hand is Aaron Larson. Aaron, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, basically it has more to do with the Vantage CRS than anything else. One of the issues that I'm running into, and I don't know if this is common across the board, is I use a yield management system for our rates. Call it yield management, hurdle points, gated rates, whatever you may have. But basically, when I get to a certain percentage of my inventory being booked, my rates do a jump automatically. That has been a nightmare for keeping up a parity with my different OTAs that I'm dealing with. If I go over to using the Vantage CRS system, is that something that is shopped often enough to keep me in line with all of the OTA channels I'm dealing with?
So, and what was the specific tool you use, Aaron?
Basically, I use my yield management tool through my room key, through my PMS. But
Okay.
you know, essentially, it comes down to my BAR or my rack rate will do an increase based on the percentage of occupancy. With the BAR increasing, of course, the percentage of the OTA rate.
Right, and that should push through to the Sabre CRS and then out to the OTA channels that are connected through the CRS. So we should probably take that one offline, Aaron, working between our electronic distribution and member care departments to see if we can dig into your issues specifically.
Yeah, because
Sure,
normally if your system is updating bar automatically in the CRS to revenue management system, then once the bar rate is increased in the CRS, if your OTA rates and all your other parity requirements are tied to bar, there shouldn't be any question with being out of parity because your bar rate changes in CRS, everything else sort of falls right back into place. So if it's not behaving that way, there may be something funky going on that you need to have some more research into.
All right, Aaron, so we'll follow up with you on that.
Okay. Okay,
All right.
yeah, that sounds good. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. We have another question here that is from Manish Dakar. Do we have to maintain parity with travel coupon book websites?
No, I would say no, because a travel coupon book requires a, some sort of an identification or a presentation of something at check-in. So if anything that requires that they have to give you a coupon, show you an identification like a military ID or a AAA membership card or loyalty membership ID, anything that requires them to present something at check-in in order for them to be eligible for the rate is not included in parity.
And I second that and agree. Again, those are not the shopped sites. It's really the electronic distribution channels that are being shopped and that are part of the parity. Anything that's coupon-driven or membership-driven that's specific and required to show upon check-in is not, as Evelyne mentioned.
We have another question, actually a hand raised, Keith Aj, I believe. Keith, do you want to ask a question?
Okay, this is different question. My question is, if you go on Kayak, like my hotel is on 3rd or 4th page, how we bring it to the 1st or 2nd page?
On Kayak specifically?
Yes.
So if you're searching in your and where's your hotel?
It's Neptune, New Jersey.
Neptune, New Jersey. So you show, or you see yourself showing on the 4th page of the search results for when somebody searches for Neptune.
Right.
That's a great question to which I don't have the answer directly, but I'll certainly find out what Kayak uses as their primary drivers for placement, and we can get back to you through the member care manager in the area, and I believe that is Christy. So I'll get with Christy, Keith, and we'll get you an answer on that and look at how we can improve that placement.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We have another question. Actually, Bennett Davis raised his hand and asked a question. So, Bennett, I'm going to unmute you, and you can ask the question directly if you like.
Hi, good afternoon. Does the GDS rack rate and the hotel rack rate have to be the same? Is it okay for the rack rate to be hotel rack rate to be $5 less?
And I think are you asking? We're managing that as a CRS. Are you asking for a rate? And what we have?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We're getting some feedback.
I'm going to just mute Bennett for a second. So I guess the question, Bennett, and then I'll unmute you to get a response on this. Is the issue whether or not when you say the hotel rack rate, do you mean for walk-in business or calling to the hotel direct, or are you talking about on the website? And I'm going to unmute you. Bennett?
I don't think you unmuted.
Hello?
I don't think you unmuted.
No,
Hello?
I did.
No, I did.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm talking about the call-in rate and on the hotel website. Being that the GDS rack rate is going to be, say for example with Expedia now in the spring special, my rack rate is say $69.99, I'm getting a $47 rate. But if I'm quoting a $69 rate at the hotel level or a $64.99, is that an issue?
If it's only available during the voice.
I think you need to mute him again.
Yeah, I did.
If that rate is only available for anyone calling in, whether it's direct to the property or to the call center, that is not a shopped rate, so that should not become a parity issue. It's not obviously a practice we recommend, but it would not necessarily be the issue. Anything that on any electronic shelf, GDS, our brand website, the OTAs, or any other channel that you may be working with independent of the brand through an extranet or other resources would have to be at that same offering.
Okay.
Right. The parity comparison comes into play with if the average guy on the street went online and looked for your hotel, what would the price be? So if it's a price that you're only offering when they call your hotel specifically, then that doesn't fall into that same category, right? Because you're building a fence, and that fence in this particular case is you have to call the hotel directly. That obviously wouldn't fall under the parity paradigm.
Okay. Let's see here. We've got a couple other hands raised. We have Bibi Patel. I'm going to unmute you, Bibi, and hopefully we won't get the feedback issues. But go ahead and ask your question.
Hi. Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just had a question regarding packages. We haven't really created any as of yet, but we're redoing our rooms as well. So we may have upgraded rooms. Now, is that something that if we sell the property level, we have to disclose that to some of the other third-party sites that, hey, we have a deluxe room that's available?
All right. No, you don't. If you offer it to one, you have to offer it to all the others. But you don't have to offer every one of your room types. If you want to keep your OTAs to sell only one or two levels of your rooms, maybe your standard and moderate categories, and you don't sell your deluxe or your suites or your junior suites or your premium renovated rooms or whatever your categories are, you can limit which you want them to sell. The only thing is you have to make sure that whatever you decide, it goes across the board. So if you only want to sell your standard rooms, that's fine, but don't give one a junior suite and then don't give not the others. So that's where you get into that inventory category of parity that people will start screaming. But if as long as you maintain that everybody has the same type of rooms to sell, that's fine. If they specifically have an odd client that wants something specific, you might be able to do a one-off for one reservation upgrade type scenario, but I wouldn't even recommend that. I would just say, decide which room categories you want to sell to the OTAs and stick to your guns.
Okay. Now we have a question from Al Patel. I'm going to unmute you, Al, and you can fire away.
Hello. I was wondering if we created our own website for the hotel, would that have to be also in rate parity if we had guests basically book through our personal website, as this would say basically on booking fees from OTA sites?
No, absolutely. Again, if Joe Consumer can sit in front of his computer and find your website, so will the OTAs. And those rates have to be in parity. No matter where you sell them, whether it's your own website, Vantage's website, or some other partners, the rates have to be in parity. Within the parameters that we discussed on the call.
All right, Al, does that answer your question, Al?
Yes. Yep. Perfect. I was assuming so, but I just wanted to double check.
I got you. Let me try Dilip one more time. Dilip, are you there? All right. How about Ashvin? Ashvin, it looks like you might have a question. Going once, twice, 3 times gone. All right. If you have any last questions, raise your hand now, because we've actually covered everything that's come through so far. And we're right up against our 60 minutes. We'd like to thank Evelyne for taking the time out of her busy schedule to help us out in understanding this topic. Vicki, do you have anything you'd like to say to close?
Again, I'd like to thank Evelyne. It was very informative, and I think really, hit on the hot topic and what we needed to be able to educate and share. So I appreciate that, and I think this is still a timely conversation. If after this call you have further questions, further thoughts, please reach out to your member care manager. They'll work with my team and answering any of those, looking at any specific needs. So again, it's always an ongoing opportunity. We're always here to help and assist. I understand the complexity, the difficulty of parity in the industry. So again, we're here to be that support and help you kind of navigate those waters. So we have one more question, it appears, that came in. So we're going to...
Yeah, Phoebe, you had a question?
Yes, it kind of builds on the other question. So as mentioned, someone said that they have a personal site. Now there's a lot of, in our city we even have something that the city has as far as a local site for local business for people to book. And I wanted to know, like as mentioned before, if we have like special rooms or special packages and we wanted to put it online and put it on those private sites, would we be able to sell on there, and do we need to have parity with all the other OTAs if we're not offering it to any other OTA but it's on our private sites?
If you are offering to a local, market-specific website, right, if there's any restrictions to the general public being able to access that site, in other words, if they have to log in using an ID and password, or if they have to put in any particular promotional codes, then no, you can offer them any rate that you want, provided that it's within your strategy, and it would not be included in a parity discussion. The other thing is that if it is a site that just, Joe Consumer can just go on there and find your price, if it's just a price for a room, it has to be parity. But you can offer them rates that have restrictions, in other words, or a package. So if it's any kind of a package that has a minimum length of stay, so 2-night minimum, and that it includes anything, any kind of package items, discounts here, or a dinner, or a breakfast, or something that isn't normally included in the rate, then those would be excluded. So that's the other thing. If they have to put in a promotional code in order to see the rate, anything that has any of those kinds of fences around that rate, you're good. But if just anybody could go on there and just buy a room-only price, it has to be parity.
Okay. Thanks, Evelyn, and thanks again for taking your time today. That's going to conclude our webcast. I do want to mention that we have recorded the webcast, and we'll be posting it on the VantageAcademy.com website probably early next week. And I also wanted to let you know that the next webcast will be June 12th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time again. And the topic there is going to be on how to utilize and read the Smith Travel Research monthly report. So we'll have a guest speaker on from STR along with Jesse Ostrom from our Revenue Management Department. And we'll be getting a notification out to everyone within the next couple of weeks with a link so that you can go online and register for that webcast as well. So, on behalf of Rita Weber, Vicki Schell, Evelyne Oreskovich, and myself, we'd like to thank you for taking your time today. Best wishes for a prosperous summer season, and we hope to see you again in early June. Thanks again.